Hey there, crew. This is Dr. Argie here. Welcome to the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. Oh my goodness, it's been a minute. I've missed you guys. This is Dr. Argie. I am the founder and CEO of Faith Inc. that stands for Family and Individual Therapeutic Healing, and co-founder and CEO of Connections Matter LLC with my husband, Morgan E. Wilson Jr. And here we bring you live content. Yes, we bring you some hot, juicy topics and some things that are trending. And at the end of the day, it's all about having the tough, courageous conversations. So we want to bring those to you as well. This is Mindful Mondays, right? And you all know why I wasn't here last Monday. We laid to rest my good friend, the Reverend Dr. I call him Doctor, the Reverend Dr. James Jackson Jr. And so I just kind of wasn't feeling myself, but it was a wonderful homegoing ceremony. It really is a homegoing celebration. We definitely celebrated our friend, Whitney, who was his life partner for over 30 years, and his children, Trey and Jordan, and his mother-in-law, Gert, and his brother, and brother-in-law, sisters, and friends, all celebrated him. And so it was good. It was good. So we are here on Monday night. I hope that you guys join me in this conversation. As you know, I only asked one thing of you. What is that? I asked you to STLC, share, tag, like, and comment if you feel like this conversation is not just for you, but if it's for someone else, right? We say that this is a dialogue, not a monologue, and so we want to share this information. We want to share this conversation, and if it's tough for you, maybe it's tough for somebody else, and maybe something that is said in this conversation is meant to help someone else. So this evening we are. Actually, for the entire month, we were talking about love, and I kind of changed it because it's spring cleaning. I don't know if y'all are trying to clean out your closets or clean out your houses or clean out your cars. I know that Lou was helping me in my home office, and we took a whole bunch of stuff to the Goodwill. So we're in the process of cleaning out spaces and places. But what about relationships? What about relationships? This month, we're talking about how to spring clean your relationship spring cleaning. And tonight, I thought it would be pretty cool or interesting to talk about sibling relationships. Yeah, I am one of 4. I should say I actually am one of 5, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Lou is one of 6. Lou is one of 6. My husband is one of 3, so we all have siblings. And last Wednesday, April 10th, was National Sibling Day. And, you know, there's a national day for everything. And so that was National Sibling Day. So I saw a lot of Facebook Live series. I saw a lot of Facebook pictures of people's siblings. I saw a lot of Instagram pictures of people's siblings. And I thought, what if we talk about siblings, right? What if we talk about the ins and outs of sibling relationship? And so we entitled it Sibling Connections versus Disconnections. Yeah, because siblings, especially in adult relationships, what do they teach you? Well, I can tell you what I was told when I was growing up. I was told blood is thicker than water, and that you always look out for your sisters. And for us, it was 3 girls that I grew up with. You all know I grew up with my sister Kim, who is the oldest in my relationship, and then there was my sister Kelly, who I went to Howard with. A lot of my crew, Howard crew, knows Kelly, and I'm in the middle, so I'm the middle child, right? And then there's my sister Malta, who grew up in Alabama. She's our half sister. We don't refer to her like that, but we didn't really get to know her until we became teenagers. And then something that you all may not know is that I have another sister. So I actually have 2 sisters named Kimberly, right? I have my older sister Kimberly, but two older sisters, because my mother, her first child that she was pregnant with was stillborn. And so she didn't make it all the way here alive. And, I tend to think that that's something that years ago people didn't talk about, but a lot of babies were either born stillborn or miscarried. And did you all even know that that is a thing, that even the children that did not make it here, or if you have a sibling that has passed away, the impact of their spirit is still connected with your family system. And so I used to always wonder, like, what's the deal? My mom and my sister were very, very close. And then I realized when I got a little bit older, when I, went to graduate school, that the reason why they were so close is because I think that my mother was very upset. She never talked about it, but I think she was sad that my first sister, Kimberly, was not able to, she wasn't able to get her here, usher her onto this planet healthy, as a healthy baby. And I think she made up in her mind subconsciously, nothing's going to happen to my children. And Kimberly, my sister Kim, was the next child. So as a result, they had a very, very, very close bond. Not that she wasn't close to all of us, but there are stories like that, I'm sure, that many people have with regards to their siblings, and try to figure out, what's the deal? How do we maintain our connections once we become adults, when now it's no longer demanded by our parents, it's voluntary, whether we maintain those healthy connections or whether we don't maintain those connections with our siblings. There are a lot of people, quite frankly, who have closer relationships with their friends than their siblings. So I don't know if y'all heard the statement, but there is a statement out there that, not only blood is thicker than water, but that you can pick and choose your friends, but not your family. Your family is the family that you're given, and your siblings are the siblings that you've given, unless you're from like a family that has invested in, let's say, adoption, and that's a choice, if you will. But by and large, you kind of get the folk in your family that, God designed you to get. And then the question becomes, do you really like your siblings? Do you all get along? Are you from, are they your cup of tea? Are you their cup of tea? If you're not, then how does that work? So tonight, we're going to talk about all that. I hope you guys will sign on. It's 7:58, so it's almost about 8 o'clock on a Monday night. I see a heart from Drake. Hey, Drake, I hope that you are on tonight. Let us know if you are on. I know you have, I think, one sister. I don't know. I don't think you have a brother. And I know that your wife, Monique, my dear friend who passed away, I know she had some sisters, but she was kind of raised the only child, and she had some sisters and siblings as well. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. I think when you're looking at, so I was reading a few articles today. One was about the Kardashians, which is interesting enough because the Kardashians, I think I was reading about Kim Kardashian, who I didn't know has 3 children. She has a daughter, a son, and then she has another daughter. And let me get the names right. I think the daughter's name is Northwest. The son's name, I can't think of it, but it's kind of like an odd name. I want to say Southwest, but I don't think it's Southwest. And then can you look that up, Lou? And the other daughter's name is Chicago, so they call her Shy West. And the first 2 pregnancies were difficult, and she had preeclampsia. And so she had a surrogate for the 3rd baby. And it's my understanding that she didn't really want to have any more children, but some articles say that she wants to have lots of children.
Saint West, Northwest, and Chicago West.
Saint West, that's what it is. The son is Saint. So North, Saint, and Chicago. I guess they want to be different, huh? So anyway, those are the siblings. Now, Kim Kardashian was one of 2 sisters and a brother by her father, who was the attorney. And then when Kris married, her husband, Bruce Jenner, at the time, was Bruce Jenner, she had 2 more children, Kylie and I don't know. I don't know the Kardashians that well. Katie, Kylie, something. They all begin with a K. And last week, when it was National Sibling Week, there were a lot of I know Chanel Jones. All her siblings showed up at the Day Show, and it was like a surprise or what have you. And so, the sibling relationships that we're in as adults are. What are you doing though? Here, she's walking all over the floor. Clearly, it's going to show up somewhere. So listen, it says live. I need someone to tell me if you all are on, because I don't see anyone. Or Lou, if you go on, tell me if you see people.
On, then I clicked off by
Says it says live. I don't see that anyone has. I saw some hearts. Well, you all, if you can't sign on, send me some thumbs up or some hearts and let me know that you are on tonight, and so that we can have this conversation. In the meantime, I think,
live?
Yeah, I'm live. I don't see anybody though. I was laughing at Lou, because she's walking around the floor. I'm like, what is she doing? Oh, okay. I see some thumbs up. Okay, good. Glad that I see some thumbs up, and I see Lou's name. I see Drake's name. So good. Sending me more thumbs up. Send me hearts. I like smiley faces sometimes. Well, Kimberly's on. Hey, Kimberly. Thanks for joining the show. If you guys, I see some more hearts. You guys, listen. Y'all know I love hearts. You see this little heart right here that my husband brought me? You all know I love hearts. I like thumbs up. I like smiley faces. If you're just joining, we are talking about this month, relationship spring cleaning. Anybody in the mood to spring clean? I think spring cleaning is laborious, and it's tiresome. I don't like it, but think about it from this perspective. All throughout the winter, we kind of bring stuff in the house and buy stuff, and the drawers are full, the closets are full, the cupboards are full, and we just collect things. None of these things of which we can take with us, but we just collect them. And then, we need to sort of figure out how to purge. And those who don't purge, the things that they accumulate, they sometimes go to waste, or they are not very valuable after a while. I think the same thing about relationships, interesting enough. And Tawana joined the show. Hey, Tawana, thanks for joining the show. I think the same thing about relationships. Isn't it interesting how we sometimes accumulate relationships, and then as we get older, we have more relationships than we know what to do with, quite frankly, and we are not always spending the quality time with the people that we care about, we love the most. And we sort of have this idea that we sort of have to go along and get along. It's interesting that Kimberly is on, because I think we were talking about in one of our meetings, her siblings and birth orders. So I want to ask you guys some questions with regards to sibling relationships. And I want you to see what your thoughts are about sibling relationships. I have lots of thoughts about relationships. So one of my first questions to you is, when's the last time that your sibling did something to help you when you were either having a hard time or a rough time? Maybe just reached out and said, how are you doing? Because what's interesting sometimes is we tend to take the people that we're closest to for granted. And if we're strong, or if we are just kind of plugging away, away in our marriages and our relationships and our work life, then sometimes we don't either ask for help, or sometimes people that are closest to us don't think we need help. So when's the last time your sibling helped you, reached out to you? When is the last time that you reached out to your sibling, right, and offered to help or support them with something? These are just questions in my head that I have about siblings, and I want to weigh in on the things that resonate with you. I also, when we were talking earlier, the team, I was thinking about what you do if you are you know, not really feeling your sibling. If, you know, like last week was National Sibling Day and you saw all these posts, but y'all know how I feel. Like this Facebook is a platform and it should be used for good, but sometimes it can be fake book, right? Sometimes people put things on Facebook that are not really true. Gail is on. Hey, Gail, thanks for joining the show. Kimberly says, my big sister, Barbara Berry Bailey, that is a tongue twister, Kim. Barbara Berry Bailey, and my older sister, Bianca Berry. Everybody has a B. I take it in your family are always in my corner and vice versa, which is great. It's great. I see thumbs up. It's great to have siblings that are in your corner. That's the other thing that we used to say when we were younger, blood is thicker than water, right? You would hear that. In my family, people would say you always need to have your sister's back no matter what. And my sisters definitely have my back no matter what when we were younger. And as we got older, we continue to have each other's back. It just looks different, right? So I'll tell you a funny story. And I don't know, my oldest sister, Kim, she's not on Facebook, but her niece sometimes comes on the show. So I'm going to tell you a funny story about this was when I was in high school and I was dating this guy. I won't say his name. But I was dating this guy, but the guy was cheating on me. And it was like my first relationship. I thought I was in love. And I would come home, and I was never a fighter. I was like more, let's talk about it, right? You know, go figure, I became a therapist, right? And so I came home, and my sister said, who are you on the phone with? Because the phone would like ring at the same time when I would get home for some reason. And so I was very sheepish as I'm talking to this person. And she says, who are you talking to? And I was like, didn't know what to say. I was like paralyzed. And then she like snatched the phone and said, who is this? This is my sister, Kim. And the girl said to her, you just tell your sister to stay away from my man. Now, mind you, we're like 14, but she's like, stay away from my man. And so my sister says, who is this? And she says, you don't need to know who this is. This is just the person or whatever. I just want your sister to stay away from my man. So talk about having your back. My sister, I hope she doesn't, she can't get arrested for this, I don't think, since it's so many years ago. But she told the girl to meet her on Wadsworth Avenue with a butcher knife. And she, it was true. She was going to like do something to that girl. So she did go up to Wadsworth Avenue and with the butcher knife, because we didn't have a weapon back then, right? So then she got the butcher knife and the girl didn't show up. Let's see. What? Oh, I got it. Okay. So the girl didn't show up, and but it taught me a valuable lesson. Like, you really do need your sisters in your corner. Kim said, whoa, right? She didn't harm the girl or anything. She didn't show up, but I was the kind of person that I would call. There was another situation where the girl at lunchtime, I'm in high school, I'm so shy. And this girl said, she was going to beat me up. And I was like, who, me? Like, I don't bother anybody, right? I'm a bookworm. And she's like, yeah, your hair is too long. I'm going to cut those ponytails or something. And let me tell you, I called my sister at Girls High. I asked the principal to get her out of school. And I called, she picked up, she came to the principal's office, got on the phone, says, what's going on? I said, this girl's going to beat me up and you have to come. I don't know how to fight. It's going to kill me. My sister got out of school. She came over to Leeds, where I shouldn't have been in the first place. I'm traumatized because my parents didn't send me where I got accepted to Masterman. I went to Leeds. And needless to say, that was my 8th grade year. And after my sister got finished dealing with this girl, she was asking me, should she write my autograph book? You remember the autograph books when you were like a kid where, everybody writes? So I still have that autograph book where she was like, oh, I wish you so much. I wish you well and all that kind of stuff. So, that was just when we were kids, and that's important. But I also think that, relationships can become very challenging when we become adults. And when we're young, we don't really have the full breadth of how complicated, complex, challenging, nuanced relationships can be until we get older. And then, we begin to sort of try as best we can to process those relationships. Mateen is on. Hey, Mateen, thanks for joining the show. So my question to you, Gail, Tawana, Kimberly, Mateen, is if you have siblings, since last we're talking about relationship spring cleaning, I don't mean get rid of your siblings. I don't mean that, right? What I do mean, though, is cleaning out the junk. Like if there is aught, if there is negativity, if there is conflict, if there is misunderstanding, if there are just ways in which you are disconnected, the spring cleaning is to address it. Here, this is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series, right? And what we ultimately believe is that courageous conversations do connect, right? But you got to have them in order for them to connect you. And too often, as a therapist, I saw a whole bunch of thumbs up and smiley faces. So too often, this is what I see. This is what I sort of learned in my own family, and go figure, I became a family therapist, is that sometimes we don't address the pink elephant in the room. Something happens, we're holding a grudge, somebody died, someone didn't do what they thought they should have done. There was an injury, an emotional injury, perhaps. Perhaps someone hurt someone's feelings with their words or their actions, and those sibling relationships. And as a result, people start holding on to those grudges, and it becomes toxic in their relationships. And once it becomes toxic, it permeates the atmosphere. You ever walk in a room and you didn't know what happened in that room? Like you just came over for the picnic or the barbecue or whatever, and you walk in the room and you're like, whoa, something is going on up in here. And you don't have a clue. You just know that it's thick, like the air is thick, and so what I would say is that if there is an issue in your relationship with your sibling, why not deal with it in love? Why not figure out a way to try to have the conversation and say, we need to talk. I do this for a living, so I do have a little bit of a cheat sheet, but I will tell you, even though I have a cheat sheet when it comes to, the people that I see here at Faith Inc. And by the way, if you're having an issue, I don't just do Facebook Live series, right? If you're having an issue with your siblings, with your family, if you've had a loss, a death, if you're grieving, if you've dealt with divorce, if you're dealing with a job change and you need either therapy or coaching, we're here. I'm here every day at Faith Inc., which stands for Family and Individual Therapeutic Healing. And so, and I don't take this work lightly, by the way. This is a calling for me. I believe that I'm walking in my purpose, and I'm walking in a destiny for not only me, but the gifts that God has designed me to do. So I'm sort of like what I consider to be the firefighter, the firefighter that goes into the fire versus running away from it, what other people do. And so if you're having an issue with any family member, we as people don't have to suffer in silence. Just like God trained sets people up with whatever their particular gifts or talents are. Maybe it might be a surgeon, or a doctor, or an attorney, or a teacher, or a firefighter. God also prepares people like myself as clinicians to help people sometimes in the darkest moments of their lives, in the most challenging times of their lives, to process. And therapists kind of work themselves out of a job, right? So they're not necessarily here for a lifetime. They are here, though, I'm kind of like the family doctor that you might go fly for a while and something happens, and then you come back to really process a trauma or difficulty or a challenge in your family, in your workplace, in your friendships. and your community, if you will. And so I just wanted to put that tidbit out there that, if you like this content and if you feel like it's valuable for you or someone else, let them know we're here, right? 215-789-6999. That's my phone number. You can reach me, and you can reach me at Dr. Argie at connectionsmatterllc.com. So I asked you a couple things, and let's see who else is on. This is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. And Kevin's on. Thanks for joining, Kevin. Mateen is still on. Hey, Mateen. Marquisa's on. Hey, Marquisa. Thanks for joining the show. Kimberly said, we had our problems after our mother died, and I didn't talk to one another for a long time. It was too painful. Through God's grace, we overcame them. Things aren't perfect, but we've come a long, she puts in capital letters, way. Thanks, Kimberly, for sharing that. I'm so glad you brought that up. I am so glad that you brought that up, Kimberly, because I do think that when major life issues take place, like the matriarch or the patriarch passes away, sometimes people are left with grief. Well, a lot of time, grief. Sometimes people are left with guilt. Some people are left with, feelings of confusion or anger. The stages of grief are real. You all know the stages of grief. People go through anger, they're in denial first, and then they're angry. Sometimes they bargain. They're wondering, what if I had have done this? Would this have changed the outcome? There are times when they're just depressed, right? That happened. I told you guys when my mother passed away, I was just depressed for almost a year, and I was newly married, and I feel bad for Morgan because he was like, I didn't sign up for this. You're just depressed. You give, your clients everything and you come home and you're depressed. But we work through it together. And then finally you make it to acceptance, but it takes a long time. And how many of you all have ever experienced with a sibling where something traumatic happens? I experienced this in my in the work I do here at Faith Inc. Something traumatic happens in your family. Somebody passes away. There's a divorce. Your parents split up. That's like a death too, right? And you want your siblings to experience it the same way that you're experiencing it. So if you're sad, you want them to be sad. And you're wondering why they're happy, right? Or why they seem like they're not even focused on what you're focused on. Or if you're happy or you're moving on with your life, you're like, snap out of it, get over it, move on, let's go. Nothing we can do about that. But there's this, that's a thing, kind of having an unrealistic expectation that because you're siblings, you're going to have the same thought process about what's happening. Lou is in the background going. Lou's in the background. I wish you guys could see her. Wait a minute. I'm going to see if I can turn this around so you can see her. I tried to do this before. Lou's in the background sitting on the floor talking about just shaking her head. You know that little icon you put SMH, shaking my head. Because really, that is an unrealistic expectation to have, that simply because you grew up in the same household, or because you were born to the same parents, or because you were raised with the same similar value systems, that you're going to think alike. You're not clones of one another. You have a different can have a different thought process. And here's something I really feel like this is going to bless a lot of people. I learned this many years ago, that sometimes we have to accept people, including our siblings, for who they are. Wait for it. Wait for it. And who they are not. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes we have to accept people for who they are and who they are not. And isn't that sometimes the most difficult thing? To be like, I want you to care more. I want you to show up more. I want you to act like it's important to you. And I want you to be in this fight with me. Let's go. Let's just do it. And you're like, and they're like, they're like, I'm not in this fight with you. And I never said that I was. So then how do you figure out a way to love the person anyway, right? And accept them for who they are and who they are not. Now, here's the key with that. I never said that acceptance was agreement. Two different things. Accepting people for who they are and who they are not is very different than I agree with you. You can really say, as my mother used to say, I can agree to disagree respectfully. Mm-hmm. And I can feel what I feel about that situation. That does not give me the right to mistreat you. That doesn't really give me the right to judge you. But I can, as we say in Philly, feel some kind of way about it because I'm human. But then I got to check myself before I wreck myself, because here's the key. And I feel like I'm dropping some pearls here, so I'm hoping that you all are catching these pearls. The same way that we have to accept people for who they are or who they are not, we have to know that they have to accept us for who we are and who we are not. That took me a while to figure that out, right? Because I was like, I'm great, right? Like, you know, in my own narcissistic head, I was like, I'm great. And then I realized, no, I do not want Morgan to come in here and validate this, but the truth is, I can be a little bossy. I really can be. And there are probably other things that my siblings don't particularly like about me, and vice versa. But overall, we love each other, and there are more things that we like than we don't like. And so then that becomes the question, like, what are you going to focus on? Are you going to only focus on the things that you don't like? Or are you going to focus on the things that you do like? Because it's complicated. It is very complicated. Ah! Go to your office.
Yes, bossy.
Bye, Morgan.
But that's what makes you so successful too.
Lucy said that's what makes me so successful. I do think that and that's for another show, but I do think that there's something to be said for people who are able to be like harness their strength and invest in themselves and have fortitude and due diligence and resilience. And sometimes that does require that we have to kind of be directive. We got to direct some things sometimes, but we try to do it in love. We try. But nevertheless, I want to hear what your thoughts are. And let's see, Mateen is still on and Michelle's on. Hey, Michelle, Anthony's on. Let's see, Kevin's on. Thanks for joining the show, Kevin. What's Mateen say? How did you handle the death and Morgan held you down? How come out of the darkness must have been really tough for Morgan. Okay, to kind of put that together. So absolutely, it was very, very difficult. I often, you all kind of know me by now, that to a certain degree, I'm a little bit fascinated with death because I believe in the dash. I believe there's birth, there's death, and then there's the dash. And that, we're all here on purpose. I see some smiley faces and hearts. There's birth, there's death, and there's the dash, and there's stuff that we need to do, right? The sermon this Sunday at church was awesome. Our pastor talked about, we got something to do. We're all here on purpose. Act like we have something to do. But yet, here's the difficulty. At times in our lives where challenges happen and injuries occur or people die, that is a schism, right? That can be a disruption in our lives. And you're absolutely right. When I was depressed, go figure, because therapists get depressed too, right? When I was depressed, now what was helpful is that seeing my clients kind of helped me to move out of my own emotional space and really focus on helping other people. But then when I got home, I would just cry myself to sleep. And I missed my mother terribly. And I do still miss her terribly. And there are moments like coming up on Mother's Day and holidays where I kind of get in my feelings. But I will tell you, as bossy as I am and as challenging as I may be, God will set you up and put some folk in your life that are in it to win it with you. And that is what happened with Morgan and I. He put Morgan in my life. I can't even tell you where I would be or what would be happening for me if I had to walk that journey alone. And if you all know my story, for many years, the majority of my adult life, I had walked through the world as a single professional adult that was not partnered and not married. And I was not married. I had no children. I was a nucleus of one plus a dog, 2 dogs at one point, 1 dog. And then then 1 dog died and another dog died. And then it was just me again. And so Morgan really, really held it down. And let me tell you how he did it. One of the things Morgan said, I remember saying to him one day, I remember looking at him and saying, you know, I'm so sorry that I'm so depressed. I know that this is not what you signed yourself up for. And he looked at me and said, I am not going anywhere. I'm in this to win it. So whatever you need, I am here. Coffee, a glass of wine, to cry on his shoulder, or just to be. Like, he was the ministry of presence for me. And I can't tell you how valuable, he's in that room now listening to this, but I can't tell you all how valuable that was, because I had spent my entire life, Lucy will know, she's walked this journey with me. I spent my entire life helping people, my adult life and part of my childhood life, and not really asking people for much of anything. And to be partnered with someone who reversed it on me and said, you don't have to do anything for me, I'm here for you, made the world of difference. And he didn't rush my process. He didn't insist that I get better quickly. He didn't insist that I get over it quickly. He didn't insist that I just shut myself off from my feelings and act like I was okay. And so to the world, I had to sort of put on a mask and go out there. But when I got home, he allowed me to just be sad. And eventually, I stopped being sad and I started feeling glad and grateful. I just started feeling like my old self again. But it took time and it wasn't easy for any of us. But how many of you all have relationships, marriages, friendships, sibling relationships that are completely easy the entire time, that don't come with any challenges, don't come with any, valleys, they're all peaks? I don't know any relationships like that. And so one of us, sometimes we have to ask ourselves, are we in it to win it? But we also have to ask ourselves, what is your expectation? Is your expectation that you'll be in it for the long haul and you'll be there through the peaks of the valleys? Or is your expectation that it's going to just be all good, it's all sunshine, no rain, no challenges? Because that is unrealistic. That's unrealistic. It's interesting. We were talking about that last night. Nicole's on. Hey, Nicole, my niece, thank you for joining the show. We were talking about that snowplow parenting and how do you raise children? I know I'm taking a shift here, but how do you raise children if your job is to make sure that they have everything that they need, right? Good education, good home to live in, all the values that you can provide, spiritual foundation. And yet, simultaneously, your job is to make sure that they understand that they've got to roll up their sleeves and do the work of developing so that they learn how to have coping skills and be challenged in life, So all of that is a challenge because life is a challenge. And when we have siblings in our lives, we hope that makes it better. Frankie's on. Hey, Frankie, thanks for joining the show. Antonio is on. Thanks for joining the show, Antonio. We are, if you're just joining the show, we are talking, Michelle's on as well. We're talking about siblings, right? And this month, we're talking about relationship spring cleaning. I don't mean like when you clean your room and you get rid of a whole bunch of stuff and you give it away. I mean relationship spring cleaning, like what is in your relationship that is keeping it way down? Are there things that you need to talk about that you choose to just run away from? Are you like really not enjoying or getting the benefit out of your relationship because you're not really challenging yourself to go deeper, right? Sometimes people want to stay on the surface, but this is what I say about surfacey relationships. If you stay on the surface of your relationship and you don't invest in it, then you won't get a whole lot out of it. If you go deeper and you invest more, then the probability is that you're going to get a whole lot more out. Just like if you go to the bank, you go to the ATM, you put your digits in and you put the numbers in that you want to get a withdrawal. If you've not put any money in, where are you going to get out? A big fat zero. I'm getting a lot of smiley faces and a lot of, so I'm hoping that I'm saying some stuff that you guys resonate with. If you're just hopping on, this is the Ask Dr. Argie Courageous Conversations Connect series. Here we bring you content, definitely have hot topics and courageous conversations. And I ask you to do one thing, STLC for me. Share, tag, like, and comment, because this is a dialogue. It's not a monologue. And because last week, we celebrated National Sibling Day. And you saw on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all these pictures with your siblings. It got me to thinking, like, what are the real sibling relationships like? Are you enjoying your relationship with your siblings if you have siblings? And interestingly enough, if you don't have siblings, the truth is that sometimes we engage in friendships and those friendships become like our sibling relationships, right? Like Lou is basically like my sister, right? And I have several other friends that are very much like, I call them my sister friends for a reason. We have our sister circle, our love circle, and our circle friends that we share various things. And quite frankly, it is healthy. It helps our mental health and well-being when we can connect in a good way. But relationships are not perfect. And if there is aught, and if there is conflict, if there is discourse, if there is a challenge in that sibling relationship, then the question is it worth you fighting for? Let that sit for a minute. Because sometimes we say, I'm not going to deal with that. And what I say is either you're going to fight against it or you're going to fight for it. You're going to have to make a decision. If you fight against it, you don't value it, or maybe it is that you feel like it's not worth it to you. But if it is worth it and you are having a challenge or you are feeling disconnected from your relationship with your siblings for whatever reason, maybe that's just the way that's always been, and that's fine if that's your norm. But if something has changed and you don't know what it is or why, isn't it worth fighting for it and trying to figure it out? Tell me what you think. Donna's on. Thanks for joining the show, Jonna. James is on. Michael Moore is on. Thanks for joining the show. I had some questions a little bit earlier. Excuse me. I believe you and Morgan are. Wait a minute. Mateen, he said, I believe you, Morgan, bossy. Yep, it's true. Guilty as charged. if you're just coming on, I asked some questions. I asked, how are you in your relationship with your siblings? We're about to go, for those many of the believers, we're going to, and we're about to embark on, this is Holy Week, right? There's an amazing play that's happening at E9 Tabernacle Baptist Church. Morgan and I got to see it yesterday, called Godspell. And it's tax day, and this is Holy Week. So there's a lot going on. We just got through Palm Sunday, right? And we know the significance of the palm when Jesus was going into Jerusalem. There's a lot to unpack and there's a lot to think about, but right now we're focused on our relationships. And so when's the last time that your sibling called you, said some kind words, did something to help you when you were in need? When is the last time that you called your sibling, your sister, your brother, someone that you're close to, and said, hey, just thinking about you, or, I want to help in some kind of way? Or when's the last time you just hung out and just had a good time with one another? If you haven't, the question you have to ask yourself is why? Like, as opposed to just accepting it, like, what's going on that you're not in the type of relationship that you'd like to be? Because you can change it, but you have to want to. Let's see if there's anybody else on. I have some other things that I wanted to share with you guys. Nicole is still on, Frankie, Antonio, Kimberly, Donna, James. Donna said, this has nothing to do with the topic, but you are glowing tonight. Your colors are so popping on you. Thank you, Donna. Yeah. It's spring cleaning. And Lucy said, ditto. Spring cleaning. So I decided that I wanted to wear something bright. It was a little overcast today or whatever. So thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, I think when you're living your best life and when you are walking in your purpose, there ought to be a little spring in your step. There ought to be a little bit of a shine in your temperament or in your complexion. And we ought to be happy about and grateful for what opportunities are available to us. Like, because tomorrow, and I think this is really to your point, although you said it's not exactly related, but I think it is in some ways, Donna, because to a certain degree, because in the last couple of months, there's been a lot of deaths that have come close to me and my family and my friendships. It has caused me to go deeper in my faith and go deeper in my spiritual connection, go deeper in the relationships that are meaningful to me, and also go deeper in my ability to take care of me, right? Mind, body, and spirit. So what I tell myself right up here and what I feel in here, right? And how I embrace the day, right? The day, the weeks, the minutes, how I embrace it. And I do think that makes a difference, because sometimes I, the therapist, have been very, very guilty at times of thinking negatively or focusing on what I don't have versus what I do have. We can all very easily slip into that place, that very dark place. And even my mantra, I don't know if I ever told you all what my mantra was this year. I think everybody should have a mantra every year, and that's the thing that keeps you grounded. So my mantra is fight for the light. Fight for the light. If you're going to fight for anything, fight for the light. And I think that speaks to why perhaps maybe you feel like I'm glowing, because I've been fighting for the light, right? And the world that we live in is so dark and people are so negative, and the atmosphere can be really, really toxic. And so I believe that love trumps hate. And I believe that if we're fighting for the light, my goal is always to have touch points with other people that allow them to know that my light is their light, that we can share an experience that is focused on love and light, even if it's truthful. We're focused on truth and accountability, but love and light allows us to be free. So thank you for the compliment. That was a long thank you, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it. The other thing I was going to say, and Jeremy's on, Tom is on. Hey, Tom, thanks for joining the show. I like it. Yes. Fight for the light. Yes. I want everybody to use that. Maybe we could do that. Like when we have these shows, because Donna just did hashtag. If you guys could kind of, indulge me here when we do these Facebook Live series, just do the hashtag fight for the light. That would be cool. I think I'm going to start using that a little bit in my post as well. And then whatever your mantra is, hashtag that and send it to me too, and I will post that as well. I wanted to ask you guys something about the role that you play, because I think that is very important when it comes to sibling relationships. So I'm a middle child. What birth order are you? Are you the oldest? Are you the youngest? Are you the middle child, right? What birth order do you fall? Because I think that has a significance with regards to how we navigate both our ecosystem within our families as well as our external systems, right? How we show up in our workplaces. A lot of times, because we've been called the baby for so long, then we show up in these other places and we're acting like the baby. Or we're the oldest, and so now we're bossing everybody around. Because you are the baby. Huh? Even if you aren't the oldest, right? Yeah, I'm not the oldest. I'm the middle child. I'm still bossy, right? So what birth order do you fall? Do you know the significance of your birth order, right, in your family system? And what role do you play, right? And how does that role show up in your other relationships? This is all a part of the relationship spring cleaning, because I believe that knowledge is power. But knowledge is only power if you understand it and then you execute on it. So if you want to be in a different role, you absolutely can, but you have to understand the role that you're in order to understand the role you want to be in. So there are multiple roles. There's the rescuer, right? Are you the rescuer? Are you the mediator, right? Are you the person who just kind of steps back and kind of, has this laissez-faire attitude, right? Are you the controller? You controlling everything in the fairy system, so you're the one that holds the power. Are you the more passive person in the family system because, it's just easier to go along and get along? Everyone, interestingly enough, especially in sibling relationships, is assigned a role. And we're not even usually aware that we've been assigned a role, usually by the people that are raising us or our guardians or the people that are responsible for us, until we're like deep in it. And now we're like acting it out. And then, interesting enough, once we become adults, if we've moved away from home and then we come back for holidays and things like that, interesting enough, we pick up the same role that we had when we were younger, unbeknownst to us, even if we don't like the role. We just kind of automatically, it's kind of on speed dial. Mm-hmm. And I think that those are the things that we need to really process and talk about in order for us to first understand it and then decide what we want to do about it. And you all tell me if that makes sense. I'm really interested in what your roles are in your family system. Nicole's still on. Nicole is the oldest child. She is no longer a child. She's a mommy. She's her mother's child, and she's the oldest, my niece, my dear niece. And she was the first also. So the oldest and the first are significant in a family system. Think about it from this perspective for those of you who have children who are siblings, right? And think about your relationship. It's an interesting exercise that I do with families where I ask the parents, like, who's the favorite? Y'all ever do that? Anybody ever ask you that? Who's the favorite? Well, I do that for a reason, because usually what the parents will say is, I don't have a favorite. I love all my children just the same. So then my response is, I didn't ask you, did you love your children or not? I know you love your children. I asked you whether there was a favorite or not. No parent is going to really admit to that unless they swear you to secrecy. However, there usually is a favorite. There usually is someone who kind of rises to the top and kind of presents themselves as more the pet child, if you will. Um, and, sometimes that can breed resentment within the family sibling dynamic because the very thing that the parent won't admit to, guess what? The children know. They know. If you're the favorite, y'all can admit it on here. If you're the favorite, you've been the favorite and you know that you kind of benefited from it. And all that means, though, is that you have to fully understand why that is. And then you decide whether you want to walk in it or not, what you want to do about it, whether you want to utilize that to your advantage or not. Sometimes being the favorite means you hold a lot of power and then you can use your power for good. Your resources for good versus evil. Let's see, Wanda. Hey, Wanda, she's on. Great question. I have found it hard to have a breakthrough with my sister. It is hard to have a relationship with someone who does not have the same interests. I love her deeply, but we just do not have a connect. I have no idea what to do about us anymore. I am the middle child by my mother's second marriage, and I have an older brother over me. We have a good relationship. Robin's on too. Hey, Robin, thanks for joining the show. That's a great statement, Wanda. First of all, I want to say thank you for being transparent. Thank you for sharing that, because when we share our authentic selves, then it blesses someone else. And I'm sure that you're not the only one who wants an authentic relationship with your sibling, but feels like you can't have it, or you feel like that you're not really sure what to do differently, but that person is not willing to, cooperate, if you will. Here's the thing about sibling relationships, though. If you've done all that you have to really search your soul and determine if you've done all that you can do to fight for that relationship, to fight for the light, to engage in conversation, to be authentic and say, I want to do better. What can I do? Because it's very easy, guys, to point the finger and give the laundry list of what somebody else is doing wrong. Most of us know how to do that because we can project onto somebody else and we can see their stuff very clearly. The harder part is to ask oneself, is there something that I'm doing that is contributing to the conflict or the discourse or the disconnection? And if there is, what can I do differently? If there is not, then you walk away feeling free of any guilt, shame, or embarrassment that, because you've not made any negative contributions to the conflict in the relationship. For Wanda, who wants to have a relationship but just doesn't have a disconnect, here's what's true. This is what I know for sure, that just because people are related by biology, right, by blood, doesn't mean that they're related by social connection. And unfortunately, there are many people that either admit or sometimes don't admit that if they weren't siblings, they wouldn't be friends. Because they're different people. And friendship is by selection. You make a decision that you want to be in a friendship with a person, and you can make a friendship decision that you don't want to be in that relationship anymore. Maybe you kept it beyond its expiration date. However, when you're connected through biology, right, through blood, you haven't made a decision to be in that relationship at that time. God made that decision for you all to be connected. And so it could be that you grew up in the same household, but you're not each other's cup of tea. You just don't really connect. Who they are is very different than who you are. And so what I like that Wanda said is that she loves her sister deeply. And sometimes that's all we have to hang our hats on, that we love this person and we don't wish any harm to come to them. But sometimes we may have to love them from a distance. Maybe we have to pray for them and know that God is protecting them. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be in an up and close personal relationship with one another. So it could mean that we get to hang out during family holidays or during, family rituals, but that we're not connected that way. And the question that we all have to ask ourselves is that okay? Right? Can we love the person This is a question for you guys. Can you love someone, but not really like them that much? Is that a bad thing? Right? Do we have to like everything about everyone? And wouldn't that be a little bit boring in the world, right? Morgan and I, in one of our first dates, one of the things that I said was like is underrated. And he never forgot that, because I really do believe that like is the thing that really keeps us connected as humans. It's love is the thing that keeps us centered, right? And we do need that in the world. But like is the thing that makes you want to pick up the phone and say, girl, let me tell you what just happened. Whether it's something bad or whether it's something good, like is the thing that makes me want to go home and sit there for the next 2 hours and process with my husband, Morgan, because I like him. I like what he has to say. I like what he has to, the way he processes with me. Now, there are some things that I don't like, and there's some things that he doesn't particularly like about me, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not that important. And I would submit to you, when it comes to your siblings, sometimes we have to determine for ourselves if that thing is that if there's a thing about that person, our sibling, that we don't like, how important is it really? Is it on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being it's really important, 1 being not so important. Is it a 2? Well, maybe if it's a 2, then we need to focus on what we do like versus what we don't, right? And put because it's all energy. It's all energy. And if we're focusing our energy in the negative space, right, then that can be like wild weeds. You can't, it just snuffs everything out. So there'll be good things happening, but you're focusing on the negative. And after a while, guess what happens? It becomes a personal decision for you to shut yourself off from the people that you love, that you like, people that love and like you, because most people don't want to be around people who are only focused on the negative. And eventually people just go away. They peacefully go away. You find that they don't answer your phone. Have y'all ever done that? Just, wave the pinky finger if you've ever seen somebody call you and you look at the phone, you're like, heck no, I'm not answering that, because that person is a Debbie Downer, or, they don't have anything. And it could even be the person that is that's connected to you biologically, like your sibling. Let's see what you all, the rest of you have to say. Frankie and Robin's on. Hey, Robin, thanks for joining the show. Bianca's on. Thanks for joining the show. Frankie says, it makes sense. I'm the oldest with my mom and dad. I also have a half sister from my dad, where I am the middle child. The dynamic is different. We all are together, opposed to when just my sister and I are together, and it's weird. Interesting. I agree. Those dynamics change, and, depending on who's in the space, who is in the place, who is connected. And sometimes the weirdness is because you haven't given voice to it. And I would encourage people to talk about it. Even ask your sister, it does feel weird when we're kind of together without the other sibling as the buffer or what have you. And then say, what can we do about it? Because once you give something voice, right, then what you're basically saying is, I want to do something about this. It no longer gets to fly under the radar or be the pink elephant in the room, because you've given it voice, and now you can determine for yourself as siblings, what are we going to do about this? That is where I feel like the world teaches us to be proactive in all of these other areas. If you have a job, wherever your job is, you have an evaluation and you have to write what you did well and what you didn't do well, and then sit down with your boss and strategize about what your goals are for the next year. Why don't we do that in our relationships? Why don't we take the time? Because really the 4-letter word for love is time. It's quality time. If you all ever read the 5 love languages, I don't know if they have one for siblings, but they do have one for friendships and things like that. And the 5 love languages are quality time, acts of service, gift giving, physical touch, and words of affirmation. So if it makes sense that in our partnerships, we need to be attentive to some of those love languages, why not in our familial relationships like our siblings? Do we not need to like attend to whatever their love language is and perhaps explore what our love language is and have them attend to ours if they're open and they're willing? Because what happens is sometimes our love tank gets empty, and our expectation is that that person can like fill it up, but sometimes they're unable to because they don't know what our love language is. So I hope that makes sense. The relationships, you got to talk about it, because if we don't talk it out, guess what we end up doing? Yes, it festers, but we act it out. And we act it out through resentment or anger or frustration, or feeling some kind of way because we now feel like the person abandoned us, or they didn't, include us in something, so we felt excluded. There are all kinds of things that go on in our head, that stinking thinking that we're not giving voice to. We're not having the courageous conversation, and therefore we're competing more, creating more disconnection, if you will. That makes sense. Bianca said, I can't choose family. Can't choose family, laugh out loud. Wanda said, thank you very much. Roger's on. He has a pretty big family, and I know he's very close with his siblings, so I'm hoping that he'll weigh in on some of the questions that I asked. And Frankie said, like versus love. Love that, right? So there is a difference between that. And then Mike is on. Thanks for joining the show. If you guys are just joining the show, just so you know, and Jermaine is on as well. Just so you know, the topic of the show is relationship spring cleaning, right? And we're not talking about just getting rid of your clothes and your excess junk around the house. We're talking about redesigning your relationship and getting rid of the toxins, the negativity, the conflict, the discourse, the challenges. Not that it will be perfect, but if we address some of these things, then that can clear the space, right? We call it a clearing. And if you start clearing that emotional space, then you make room for having healthier relationships and certainly more authentic relationships, which is what we most of us want. So that is the topic, and we decided that for Mindful Mondays, we would talk about sibling connections versus disconnections. We decided that we would really raise the conversation, because I do believe sibling relationships are important. Many of us are siblings. I asked you guys to really think about, when's the last time you connected? If you haven't connected with your sibling, it's not too late. Text them. We have modern technology. Tell them you love them. Tell them what you like about them. Ask them what they like about you. Figure out when you can find some time to spend some quality time together, right? And then figure out a way to bridge the gaps in your relationship, if you have them, while simultaneously setting appropriate boundaries, right? Because sometimes relationships don't work because there are too many gaps, right? There's a big chasm and nobody's filling the gap, right? And sometimes relationships don't work because there are too many boundaries, right? There's no gap, like everybody's enmeshed, everybody's in everybody else's business. You ever been in a relationship where everybody knows everything about everyone? There's no, can't hold water. As soon as somebody finds something, they're on the phone talking about. Sometimes people need to set some appropriate boundaries, not too enmeshed and not too distant. But if you don't realize that you're doing it, then sometimes you can't fix it, if you will. So this conversation is about us figuring out what's going on in our sibling relationships. If you've thought about it and you realize you haven't talked to your sibling in a while, make that phone call. Don't just post a picture on national holiday, make a call. Say, I'm calling because I love you, or I'm calling because I'm thinking about you. Or make the call and say, I'm calling because we haven't talked in a while, and I want to sit down and have a conversation about why we don't talk that often. And I want to fight for the light. The last thing I want you guys to think about, and then we'll have some stuff to talk about on Wednesday, is who's interfering. in your sibling relationships? Is it you? Is it them? Is it their spouses, right? If your spouse doesn't like your sibling, or if you don't like your spouse's sibling, what do you do about that? Because when you marry that person, but they're connected to other people. And then do you expect for them never to communicate with those people again just because they're not your cup of tea, right? I hope not, but that does happen sometimes. So I do think that this is for a bigger conversation. What I want you guys to do is I want you to really think about your role. Tell me, when we talk on Wednesday, on Testimonial Tuesdays, I want you to give your testimony. You'll see a link. Give your testimony and ask me some questions, whatever you want to ask, whatever questions you have. And then when we get to WIOW, Work It Out Wednesdays, we're going to do just that. We're going to unpack the questions, and we're going to sort of figure out how we engage in a dialogue that helps you, and give you some tips for the types of conversations that you can have with your siblings to get your relationship on track. I also think that if you have an amazing relationship with your sibling, right, then you need to celebrate that, because that doesn't always happen. And don't have an unrealistic expectation that something won't happen. There are times when things are going really well and the bottom falls out, somebody loses their job, someone gets depressed, somebody gets sick, and it can create a schism or a challenge or a disruption in that relationship. So figuring out a way, I always say keep praying, go deeper in your spiritual life that gives you the discernment and the direction, and perhaps even the words to say. We say here at Faith Think, are you helping to harm, or are you healing the hurt? You have to ask yourself the question, are your actions helping when it comes to your family, your siblings, your friendships, your relationships? Are they helping to harm, right? Keeping it real is keeping it real, not healthy. Some people will say, I'm going to give you that brutal truth. Well, is that in love, right? Or are you being brutal with your truth? Or are you helping to heal, right? Or helping to heal people with your words and with your actions. I hope that this is Holy Week, right? And, in Holy Week, it's a time of reflection. It's a time of thinking of transformation. It's a time of transition where, we as believers, absolutely believe that this time and space that we represent in Holy Week was to go deeper in reflection, so that we move to a place of what happened with the resurrection. When Jesus died for us, and that we might have everlasting life. And, this is not my projection onto you. Ultimately, this platform is for everyone, so you can believe what you want to believe. But I believe in Holy Week that we need to be deeper in our prayer life, and so that we can emerge in that transformation better, not bitter, and we can emerge healthier, and certainly we can develop, if not maintain and sustain, healthier relationships, both with our friends, but absolutely with our family. And if you believe the same, then feel free to let me know. Tell me your testimony tomorrow on Testimonial Tuesdays. And then we'll be right back on WIOW Work It Out Wednesdays to help you work out in Holy Week what's going on. And then Thoughtful Thursdays, I will give you words of wisdom and points of power and help you to, lift your spirits if you need that as you move into the end of the week with Freedom Fridays. So Freedom Fridays, remember, we are here for you, and you just need to tell us what you want us to talk about. And so we'll incorporate that in our dialogue for the following week. Well, it's been fun, guys. I'm going to make sure that I got everybody that signed on. And Donna, I don't want to forget her comment. And Ed came on. Hey, Ed, thanks for joining the show. Mike Robinson's on. Donna said, there are 3 of us, and I can't imagine not having a good relationship with my siblings. My parents raised us to hug and kiss each other when mad at each other. Oh, love it. I love it. Hug it out, right? it out when you're mad at each other. I love it. It is a challenge, the whole sibling thing. Not everyone has to deal with that challenge. And I do think that we all should be grateful if we don't. I mean, I have some amazing siblings and we love each other and we like a lot of things about each other, and we're all different, right? We all, if y'all been saying that I look more and more like my mother, but my sisters also look like my mother, and so I think that we all represent my mother and my father in many different ways, and yet we bring our diversity to the table. My sister Kim being a free spirit, and Kelly being the world's greatest, professional soccer executive woman, soccer mom, and me, I'm just